The following program includes discussions of sensitive topics that may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Truth and Liberty Show, where trusted leaders bring biblical insights to important issues to help you stand for truth and effect godly change in our nation and in our world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Truth and Liberty Show. I'm Richard Harris, your host. I'm so honored to be able to come into your homes today and share with you. Today, we're going to be talking about what remains in America, probably the number one moral issue of our time, and that is the question of abortion. And I'm really excited today because our guest is Kristan Hawkins, one of the greatest warriors in the pro-life movement that there is. She's the leader of Students for Life, and I'm going to tell you more about her in just a minute. Before we get into some comments about this incredibly important subject, though, I did want to mention to you today that we have a free offering, a gift for you today. It's a booklet by Andrew Wommack called "What is a Biblical Worldview?" And this is based on Volume 1 in a 4-volume series on biblical worldview that Andrew Wommack Ministries has created and produced. You can find it on our website at truthandliberty.net. And this little booklet, though, talks about some basic concepts. You know, the surveys have found that in America today, only 4%, that's right, only 4% of Americans hold to a biblical worldview. That means only 4 out of 100 Americans look at the world according to biblical truth and reality. We wonder today, why do we wrestle in the public square with things that seem so basic to us, like what is a man, what is a woman? It's wrong to kill a baby in the womb. This kind of stuff. It's because the vast majority of Americans are not looking at the world through a biblical worldview. I encourage you today to go on our website at gtntv.com and find the Truth and Liberty page, and you can get a free copy of this booklet by sharing your information with us. Do that and you'll be on your way to understanding a biblical worldview. So I encourage you to do that. Guys, in 2022, there was a landmark decision called Dobbs versus Mississippi. And the Dobbs case overturned the 50-year precedent of Roe versus Wade. It was a milestone in the pro-life movement that we had struggled for and fought for and prayed for years and years. The Supreme Court said that the Roe versus Wade decision was egregiously wrong from the start. Unfortunately, many Americans, pro-life Americans, thought that, oh, we've made it, we've done it, we've crossed the finish line. Roe is gone, yay. The truth is, though, that since then, the number of abortions that are occurring in America are just about the same as they were before Roe was overturned. The thing is that leftists strategically pivoted and began to promote the unfettered use and promotion and marketing of the abortion pill. Leftist hysteria has fueled this crisis. And the Federal Food and Drug Administration under Joe Biden made the abortion pill universally accessible, even by mail, which is illegal under federal law. The number of abortions in 2023 is estimated to be in America over 1 million. Think about that. 1 million babies killed in America before they ever have a chance to see the light of day. 63 million babies in America have been murdered through abortion since Roe. And currently 2,548, think about that, 2,548 abortions occur in America every single day. That's 106 every hour, 1.8 per minute, 1 every 35 seconds. Planned Parenthood still commits more abortions than any other provider in America, roughly 40% of the market share, if you will. They take in $1.8 million in taxpayer money every year? No, every single day. Planned Parenthood has also accumulated over $1.9 billion in revenue in 2023. Their excess revenue over expenses was $204 million, the highest amount of profit recorded since 2017. Planned Parenthood is one of the largest, if not the largest, donor to Democrats in the entire country. They committed over 6.7 million abortions and received $10 billion in taxpayer funding since the year 2000. In 2024, we saw 10 ballot measures in states across America legalizing abortion up until birth. putting it into state constitutions. And unfortunately, Donald Trump has withdrawn some of his pro-life support, taking the position that, well, I got Roe overturned and now it's a state's issue. The truth is, though, that it's not just a state's issue. It's a national issue from everywhere, from the local level all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. It remains the civil rights issue of our day. And I want to say this, that abortion really and truly in America is a death cult. That's what it is. It's a death cult. Hundreds of thousands of women every year in our nation, hundreds of thousands, go into abortion clinics and effectively offer up their unborn babies to the devil. In ancient times, women did this to curry favor with demon gods and idols who would supposedly bless them. In the Bible, we read about a false god called Molech. Women in the land of Canaan would lay their newborn babies or their children in the bronze arms of this demon god called Moloch, or force them to march through 2 fires until they were burned to death or horribly scarred for life. Here's something that I just learned the other day. In these ancient rituals, the priests of the demon god Moloch would bang or shout or clap or beat drums while this was going on in order to drown out the cries of the innocent unborn and the wailing of their parents. Today we see this happen all throughout the land. Anytime we bring up pro-life measures or the right of the unborn, the demonically inspired radicals on the left will begin to bang and shout and clap and beat on drums to drown out the cry of the innocent unborn who are being murdered across this nation in record numbers every single day. Abortion is strictly prohibited in the Bible. God prohibits the offering of the unborn to Moloch. Deuteronomy 18:9-10 says, "When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you any that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or the observer of times, or enchanters, or a witch." Linked right there with demon worship and the occult is abortion. In 2 Kings 16:3, the Bible calls abortion, again calls it an abomination before God. It says, "But he," Ahaz, it's talking about King Ahaz, "walked in the way of the kings of Israel, yea, and made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel." Abortion is an abomination before God. So today, Dobbs overturned Roe, and when they did, even before they did, you remember when the opinion of the court was leaked and the Democrats and leftists went crazy, turning Supreme Court confirmation hearings into absolute chaos and embarrassment and travesty? They stole the red wave in 2022 elections based on the abortion scare. Folks, they're beating their drums, they're banging. The priests of Moloch are screaming every time we bring this up to preserve this idolatry and witchcraft. And we shouldn't be surprised at that, because the Bible shows us that people will become extremely angry when their idols are threatened. Do you remember the story of Gideon in the Old Testament? In Judges chapter 6, God tells Gideon to tear down his father's altar to Baal and cut down the grove. And it says in verse 30 that the men of the city, once Gideon at nighttime, he went and he cut down the grove and he trashed his father's altar to Baal. And it says the men of the city wanted to kill him because he had cut down the grove that was by that was there. And so the same thing happens today. The left and the demonically inspired abortion advocates literally lose their mind over this issue. Do you remember in Acts chapter 19 when Paul the apostle was in Ephesus? And it says there that so many people were getting saved and born again that the silversmiths in Ephesus caused a riot. And it's because they made money off of the worship of the false demon god Diana. And they would create these silver images of the demon god Diana and sell them to people when they went to worship that god. And it says there in verse 24, Acts 19, "For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen, whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation, and said, Sirs, you know that by this craft we have our wealth. Moreover, you see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout Asia, this Paul, the Apostle Paul, hath persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods which are made with hands. So that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. Verse 28, when they had heard these sayings, they were full of wrath, and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. And the whole city was filled with confusion. And having caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paul's companions in travel, they rushed with one accord into the theater. And the Bible goes on to talk about how they had to restrain Paul from going into the midst of the riot there and the rest of what happened. My point for you today is, do you see the connection between idolatry and money? Do you see that abortion in America today is an idol, just like Moloch, and that there's huge money being made off abortion today in this country? And the money makers and the worshipers of Moloch in America today are crying out and screaming and causing a riot every time they see us threatening their source of wealth. As I said, the biggest contributor to the Democratic Party and the backer of pro-abortion candidates and pro-abortion measures is Planned Parenthood. And they're doing it off taxpayer money. Why? Because they have billions of dollars to lose if abortion is outlawed. I want to tell you today that abortion is rooted in 4 lies, and I'm going to go quickly. Number 1, it began in the eugenics movement in modern times, where Margaret Sanger, the founder of the American Birth Control Federation, promoted birth control. She also formed the first abortion clinic in America. They shifted the discussion about life and pregnancy away from the biblical idea that human life is sacred and should be protected, to the idea that human life, the value of it, is really determined by the quality of that person's life. So if you're in an inferior class, a racial minority, if you're born in poverty, well, your life really isn't sacred and worth living. But we should prohibit people in those classes from having children. Number 2, that unborn children are lumps of tissue and not really alive. The 3rd lie is that pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood is really a burden to women. Oh no, it's not their divine purpose given to women to be the mothers and to foster life and raise children. No, it's a burden. It's really something they should be delivered from, and it's unfair. The number 4 lie is that sex, human sexuality, is really about pleasure only. It has nothing to do with giving birth and creating new human beings. So we want to liberate women to enjoy sex without consequences and just like men, so to speak. These lies have formed the philosophical bedrock of the modern abortion and sexual revolution movement. So I want to say to you today, follow the money. Follow the money in the sex industry. Follow the money in the Planned Parenthood funding and in the abortion industry. These wicked bedfellows of pornography, homosexuality, unlimited sex, and abortion all are funding the Democratic Party and are advocating successfully at every level in American government for a no-holds-barred, unlimited access to abortion, even promoting abortion as a good thing. The bottom line today, brothers and sisters, is this: we need to persuade this generation again. And there's only a few people in America as effective as our Kristan Hawkins, my guest for today, the president of Students for Life, the largest student-focused pro-life organization in the world. They grew from 2006 to now in 2025 from about a few dozen chapters to over 1,500 chapters at colleges and high schools all over America. They have trained over 100,000 students to be advocates for life. And Kristan, she's been a guest on all of the major talk shows and news media outlets all across the nation. You're going to really enjoy this interview. Before we go to a break, though, I wanted to remind you about our free offer today. What is a biblical worldview? Go to our page on gtntv.com, the Truth and Liberty page, where you can pick up your free copy today, and you can begin to understand what a biblical worldview is and why it is so critical that we disciple our children and the nation in a biblical worldview once again in America. So stay tuned. We're going to take a little break, and I'll be back after that with my special guest, Kristan Hawkins, right here on Truth and Liberty. Are you passionate about standing for truth in the culture, but don't know how to get started? Well, Truth and Liberty, our mission is to educate, unify, and mobilize the body of Christ to stand for truth in the public square. And as part of our mission, we provide you with an amazing array of resources on our website. And our website has just been revamped, remodeled, and retooled to be user-friendly. And I'm so excited about it because I believe that there's nothing like it out there anywhere. I want to encourage you today to go to truthandliberty.net and check out the Resources Center and the Get Equipped Center. On our Resources Center, you will find hundreds of links, hundreds of videos, articles, blogs, even America's original founding documents can be found on Truth and Liberty's Resources Center. It's searchable by topic, preset topic, or you can put in a custom search to find exactly what you need and what you're interested in. In the Get Equipped section, we link you to tools created by our strategic partners, including Pray, Vote, and Engage tools. We culture impact teams, civic action teams, biblical citizenship in modern America, biblical worldview training, and more. So go today to truthandliberty.net and find what you need to get equipped to stand for truth in the public square. Okay, we're back here on Truth and Liberty with our special guest, Kristan Hawkins, the president of Students for Life, which is just one of my favorite pro-life organizations anywhere. They make more of an impact than almost anyone else. Kristan, thank you so much for joining us on Truth and Liberty today.
Thank you. And thank you for those kind comments, Richard. I really appreciate that.
Well, I don't say anything that's not true. So, yeah. But Kristan, it's always good to have you on the show. I wanted to just kind of begin with you today by helping people understand a little bit about you and about Students for Life and your organizations. So I understood you took over Students for Life in about 2006, and the organization has seen incredible growth since that time. Tell us what you do at Students for Life. Like, what's the main thing?
Yeah, I launched Students for Life full-time in 2006. It was a student-run kind of organization that met annually around the National Pro-Life March every year. And the idea was very simple. We needed to go on the offense where the abortion industry was targeting college young people. And that's what we did. So I kind of took my experience as a young pro-lifer who had started a pro-life group in my high school and my college and applied it, added in my political experience I had of, going door to door, having conversations, working for President Bush all the way back. I'm dating myself there. And so that's how we really got started. And we just started going on campuses with clipboards, asking students, how do you feel about abortion? Do you want to start a pro-life group here on your campus to help change minds and serve women so no young woman feels like she has to choose between her life, her education, and the life of her child? And today we're on more than 1,500 campuses, high school, college, some med and law schools, and even a couple of middle school and homeschool groups as well. And that's the core of what we do every day. Majority of our staff, we have about 100 team members. They are out on the ground, on campuses, working with students, helping to host events that change minds, that activate, bring new young people into this movement. And it's such a critical role because when you look at the history of social movement reform. Richard, I know you and I can talk about history a lot. One thing is very clear when we look at reform movements is, the side that wins. Not only do they have God on their side, but they have the largest, most well-trained army. And that's what the pro-life movement must have. In order to be victorious, not only do we have to continue to ask for his wisdom, right? And the decisions we're making, the strategy we're deploying, but we also have to continue to grow our movement. And that's something that the Biden-Harris administration, the pro-abortion, forces, Planned Parenthood, etc., that's why they continue to fight back against Students for Life on campuses, rejecting our groups, or trying to stifle my speeches or speeches from others, or what you've seen on social media, the misinformation campaigns, the lies about pro-life laws, and all of that in the past 2.5 years since the Dobbs decision, which threw Roe onto the ash heap of history. And so that's what's so important, is if we're going to ever see that victory, which I believe we will, because I believe in a God who spoke the world into existence. So of course we can end abortion. In order to get to that day, we have to have this large, well-trained, well-deployed army. And that's the role we're honored to serve in the pro-life movement.
Well, Kristan, I see over your shoulder there the "I am the pro-life generation" sign, which has become, I think, highly recognizable now. We see it anytime there's any kind of an abortion case, decision, issue, whatever. Your folks are there holding up that sign proudly. And the thing that's striking about it is that the people that are holding up that sign are so young women, young men, and it's just so encouraging. What do these pro-life college groups do? What are they tasked with? How do they carry out their job?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question. We get that a lot. What is it that a pro-life group actually does on campuses? And I think when you ask our students, they think of their role and their job very much as twofold. One, it's to change minds of their peers who are being directly targeted to, lied to on social media, right? But then the other role is to serve, to change the environment on their campuses so no woman feels like she has to choose the destruction and the evil of abortion. And so you'll often see our groups hosting educational tabling displays, Planned Parenthood should go fund themselves, or, fetal development, things, chemical abortion, how, chemical abortion is, what's in our water, we call it. And you'll see them doing tabling displays, right? Or fetal pain. When does a child in the womb feel pain? You'll also see them doing service on their campus, hosting free babysitting nights, working to get diaper changing stations in every bathroom to kind of leave that sign of hope on campus, creating a pregnant and parenting resource guide, and trying to get the administration to put it in the health center. So when a woman goes and is trying to figure out what to do with this unplanned pregnancy, this crisis she's in, she isn't just handed a Planned Parenthood brochure. She's given resources to the local pregnancy center. And so it's very much a twofold goal. They're out there every week hosting these tabling events, hosting speakers and displays. And we really encourage them to be as creative as possible, especially with Gen Z and now soon to be Gen Alpha, because they're inundated with so much information on a daily basis on social media, and the lies that they hear just are constant. And so we're always having to push back on those lies. Things like, I hear this every time on campuses. Well, your pro-life laws are going to mean that women are going to die when they're experiencing a life-threatening circumstance during pregnancy. Nope, that's actually not true. Every pro-life state law in all 50 states has, written in exemptions very clear to make sure a woman can get the care she needs to survive the pregnancy, even if that means her child has to be delivered early and may not survive because of that early delivery. But we are constantly fixing that, and having those conversations with young people. They're also engaged politically with our Students for Life Action ministry. They're going out to state capitals. We're having 27 lobby days this month at state capitals where students are going to meet with the state legislatures, introduce our legislation, Students for Life Action, whether it's our Clean Water for All Life Act, which will prevent predatory chemical abortion sales in their state that kills babies, harms mothers, pollutes our environment, or our Life at Conception Act, which hopefully will end all abortions in states like South Carolina this year. They're introducing legislation. During the campaign this year, they were out door knocking for state legislators and, for President Trump as well. But we focus a lot on that local level where we know we can have great change and our students can be a part of it. They need to see that their actions don't just, tell them, oh, it's this thing in Washington, D.C. No, they were actually there on the floor in Arizona, in Phoenix when the legislature voted down the 1864 Abortion Prevention Act. They were angry and calling the representatives, holding them accountable, door knocking for them in 110-degree heat this summer and saying, why did you do this? And so we want them to see that they really can make a substantial difference. It's lessons that they're learning that hopefully they'll carry well into adulthood after they're a student for life, after when they become an alumni into their communities.
Well, Kristan, for college kids or maybe their parents who are watching the show, can you comment on how do students find out whether there's a Students for Life chapter at their college or their high school, and then how can they start one if there's not one?
Yeah, you can go to our website at studentsforlife.org, and it has little buttons where we have Students for Life groups. You can also just email us at info@studentsforlife.org and say, hey, is there a pro-life group at this high school or this college? And if there's not, we're going to connect you with a regional coordinator whose job it is to start those groups. So we have a very aggressive goal to see every four-year college campus have a pro-life presence in the next 5 years. And so we are currently working towards that goal, and it is keeping us up at night. There are a lot of campuses we have to reach. We have all the major state schools covered, but now we're trying to go back to the smaller schools or the private schools, the religious schools. And so we need as much help as possible. If you know a young person who is a student who's pro-life on a high school or college campus, email us. We will train them in how to get the group started, help them overcome administrative objections. We have a great legal team, and we will give them step by step everything they need to do and what they can do to make an impact. And it's something too, I sometimes I hear from parents, Richard, my daughter or son's pro-life, but I don't want them in a pro-life group because, I'm afraid of what's going to happen on their resume or things like that. And I think that's such a terrible example, because what are we telling our young people then? Not to stand up for human rights, not to do what God is calling us to do. And I think, just getting involved in the pro-life movement, I have personally seen in the last 18 and a half years, it is such an amazing catalyst for personal change of these young people, transformation. I've seen kids go from atheists to priests. Students I met who are strident atheists, who are now serving in some level within the church. And I think that's just absolutely incredible. And that's just because when you get involved in the pro-life movement, even for a young person who maybe might feel like they're alone or their campus is too liberal or too radical, you will be then surrounded with others who share your Christian worldview. And for young people on our college campuses today, there is nothing more important. I often have folks ask me, well, what college should I send my grandkids to or my kids to? And I often say it has to either be a devout school or a radically crazy school. Do not send them to a lukewarm Christian school that's going to, I think that's really important. I have seen amazing transformations from these students who go to these radical University of Washington schools or things like that, where you think, oh, no Christian will thrive. But they actually have amazing Christian communities where the Christian students are forced to come together.
That's fascinating, Kristan. I think I might have mentioned this to you before, but here at Charis Bible College, in the Practical Government School, every year we have a pro-life course, and we do send the students out to a local secular college. And I call it pro-life evangelism.
That's right.
Because although they're talking to people about the abortion issue, in 95 or even 99% of the conversations, it always ends up about God. Because when you
That's
start
right.
talking about human life, then you're going to be talking about who are we, where did we come from, the sacredness of
Right.
it. And it
Why are we
inevitably,
important?
yeah, it inevitably leads to conversations about God.
Yep.
So that
You're 100%
kind of
right.
ties into what you're saying there. But so Roe is overturned in 2022, an amazing event, incredible. Since then, unfortunately, though, we've seen the abortion industry make huge advances at the state level in many different states with these all-out radical pro-abortion laws that have been passed all in many places like Ohio, here in Colorado, which didn't even need it because it was already state law, but they put it in the Constitution, abortion up to and arguably even through birth. We did last year, though, see two states repel those constitutional measures. So we had, or three was it? We had 10 and three states said no. But
Yeah, that's right.
it seems to me that we have a really big need to educate
We
and
do.
persuade the American people on this issue once again. And that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I love what you're doing. Can you comment on that? Is that really is the core need here political? It's not political is important, but is education really to get lasting change
Yeah.
the necessary ingredient?
Absolutely, because if you think about the defeats that we saw, we were on the ground in Ohio, and it was extremely frustrating, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
We were changing minds of pro-choice college students. Costs about $12 per mind change, and I figured that out with staff time and the amount of minds change they had on campus. But it was $12 and about 15 minutes of time per person because we had to have the actual bill text of the amendment there, show them the intentional vagueness, and say, listen, you may not agree with us that all abortions are wrong. We accept that you don't agree with us. However, I can almost guarantee you do not agree what's in this amendment. This
Mm.
amendment is an all trimester abortion up until moment of birth amendment. And once we prove that to young people, they change their mind. And that's what we saw over and over again. You saw in the exit polling in Ohio, a lot of my friends who are Catholic were very disappointed. The majority of Catholics voted for the pro abortion amendment. And when they were asked why, it was because they had been told that their daughters, their granddaughters, if they had a problematic pregnancy, a life threatening pregnancy, they were going to be forced to die.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this amendment wasn't put in the Constitution, they would die. They weren't voting for it because they liked abortion, because they wanted abortion at all. It was out of self-interest for their daughter and granddaughter, which wasn't even the case. Like I said before, there's always in every pro-life law I hate to use the word exception because it's not an exception, but written out in detail how that law does not apply to a life-saving intervention where a child is born alive because the pregnancy can no longer continue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why the education is so important. We were outspent just in this election cycle by about $500 million, and if you add up all the 10 states, and that is a probably low estimate.
Mm-hmm.
The pro life movement collectively maybe spent $30 million.
Mm.
And that money was raised by a few pro life governors, Ron DeSantis, for example, the governor who I'm blanking on his name in Missouri. That was pretty much
Yeah.
it. President Trump didn't help. The GOP establishment didn't help. The pro life movement certainly didn't have those big money donors. And so, I was talking to a group of supporters in Florida last week, and they were like, yes, we won Florida, but it was too close. It was 57%, 3 more percentage points. They would have had the 60%. We have a big problem on our hands. And I said, and there was kind of like a Debbie Downer situation. And my point was that I understand it was close and it should never be that close. However, considering the amount of money we were outspent, the lies, the flat out TV ads, what was being told on social media, it was a good thing that we won. And I was on the phone calling supporters. I had 2 phones going, raising money, spending it, the last days before the election in Florida, trying to get social media ads up. So when people were Googling the amendment, at least a pro-life source was coming up, because before it was all pro-abortion sources. So I think that's the key, is it's education and being able to get our message out to the people so they actually hear it, because we have the facts, we have the truth on our side, but we have to communicate that out, and having that megaphone to do that. I think that is really the challenge. It's not that, I mean, I haven't released it. It's releasing tomorrow, our annual poll of Gen Z and well, some Gen Y voters on abortion. And the mantra, the narrative you always hear is that this generation is totally liberal when it comes to abortion. It's not the case.
No.
Fewer than 1 in 10 support the Democratic platform on abortion, which is
Unlimited.
abortion whenever, wherever, taxpayer funded. It's not the case. When you start getting into the actual situations, having a conversation, the vast majority, even of young people who are the admittedly most liberal kind of block of our voting demographic, and almost they are the largest, they don't support unlimited abortion. They may not be 100% with us. I mean, there were some shocking stats in there where, 25% of them didn't think that human rights began until birth. 15 or 13% said a court can decide when human rights begin, which is shockingly wrong and devastating. So there's some not great numbers in there, but it is fascinating when you look of the majority support all the laws that we're pushing out in the pro-life movement, minus the one that we push out, which is life at conception, no abortions, right? But they support heartbeat bill, they support a fetal pain bill, they support defunding Planned Parenthood. Majority even pro-abortion students and young people will support a pro-life candidate if they knew all the resources were there to support women who chose life, which is fascinating to me.
Yes, that is. Wow. And so it seems like Donald Trump, made some political decisions and calculations going into 2024 that he needed to pull back on his pro-life support, because I think mainly because of what happened in 2022, possibly 2020, where the Democrats turned out so many people on the abortion issue. But what you're saying is, yeah, they're lying about it, and this is part of what's fueling the abortion backlash. But at the same time, don't we see that when strong pro-life candidates, are equipped and articulate, and they stand for life, and they're able to defend their position, that they do well and that they actually win elections?
That's actually true. And I think that's so frustrating, because we've heard President Trump say this multiple times about how the pro-life issue hurt him in 2022, which is simply not true. If you look at the state legislative arena, where we spend the majority of our time and money playing in politics, engaging, right? We actually saw stronger pro-life majorities elected in 2022 heading into 2023. Same with 2024. We have now even stronger, now January 2025, stronger pro-life majorities at state houses than before Roe versus Wade was reversed. So that whole narrative doesn't even work when you apply it to actual state state legislators. What he's referring to, and what he always refers to, is the U.S. Senate candidates who lost in 2022. Which, why the heck would you blame us? The Senate candidates in 2022 who were pro-life all won. It was the pro-choice, the I don't know where they stand, Mehmet Oz, Herschel Walker, his chosen candidates who lost. So it's mind-boggling why it speaks to, Richard, the power of being surrounded by political consultants and pollsters who actually are pro-life and believe in the plank of the Republican Party. And it's very clear when you start to hear these things from him, is that he is not being given the right information. And so, yes, I understand, why he made that decision to pull back from his pro-life plank in 2024. He made a political decision, which, is a wrong decision morally, and he'll have to wrestle with his maker on that one. But it was a wrong decision just because the facts didn't add up to what he was doing. Now, what President Trump has said is that he no longer wants abortion to be federal, he wants it to be state. I disagree. I don't think anyone in our country would say slavery is a states' rights issue. We all agree that it's a federal issue. That's why we all support the 14th Amendment. However, I can work with President Trump on this states issue, because if he really believes that, then he needs to join us to debar and defund Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion vendor, who gets more than $700 million a year from us, the taxpayers, who we just found out last week broke federal law and allowed Kamala Harris campaign to use their federally taxpayer-funded office in Florida for their campaigning. I mean, this is funding his political opponents. And so there's a lot we can do, working with President Trump to get the FDA and the EPA to seriously address chemical abortion pills, which the Biden administration used the COVID crisis to deregulate, which has led to the death of mothers, hundreds of thousands of children, is a drug of choice of sex abusers and rapists in our country, and that we now know, we've proven, and will be soon releasing nationally, is literally polluting our drinking water with anti-progesterone metabolites, which if anyone who's trying to get pregnant or stay pregnant should be very concerned about, because progesterone is the hormone that keeps your baby growing, feeding your baby. And we've proven it's still in the water. And the FDA and EPA has allowed that because in the Biden-Harris regime, they didn't care about anything else besides more abortion access. So yes, rapists can get the chemical abortion pill now, but in their mind, access to abortion trumped everything else over clean water, protecting women from rapists. And these are things we can work with the president to walk back that will have substantial impacts, will save lives, and get us closer to that day where we finally see the Human Life Act, the Life at Conception Act, passed in Congress, recognizing the 14th Amendment protections that every person in the United States, including the preborn, deserve.
Wow. Well, folks, if you can't tell, Kristan is one of the most articulate defenders of life anywhere in the country today. She speaks at college campuses all over America and is just a relentless warrior. You said something a minute ago, Kristan. You said it cost you $12 per person to change a heart and a mind in Ohio. I'm wondering.
Well, really, our supporters.
What's that, huh?
It was really our supporters, $12.
Oh, well, what would happen if people all over America said, you know what, I'm going to sign up and give $12 a month to Students for Life, and every month I'm going to be changing somebody's mind on abortion. Wouldn't that be awesome? And so
it'd be amazing.
I just want to encourage everybody to go to the studentsforlife.org and sign up and become a monthly partner today, because you know that your gifts are going to be saving innocent human life. So, well, Kristan, let's talk about this abortion pill, because I think so many Christians in America today still don't, they're not keeping up with the abortion issue. They feel like, well, we won on Roe, so why are you still talking to me about this issue? I thought that's what you wanted, right? We got that done. Now where are we? But the devil made a pretty adept switch on us, and the same time as things were building, heartbeat bill and everything else, the majority of abortions in America today are not surgical abortions. And the pill, the abortion pill, is now the #1 killer of human life, probably in the world.
Right.
But it's the #1 cause of abortion in America. And can you talk more about that? And you were mentioning the environmental angle. But what are we going to do to dial that back and to win the fight there?
I think you're absolutely right, Richard. We're talking about education. This was the preeminent topic of all my speeches in the 2 to 3 years before Roe was reversed, of that Roe's reversal is simply the beginning of the end. This is that stopgap that gives Congress, that gives state legislators the excuse not to act to save human life. That's gone, but abortion is still here, and abortions tragically are happening about the same rate that they were happening before. It's much higher in the blue states. Obviously, states like Texas don't have surgical abortions. We don't have a national abortion reporting law, so we don't know how many abortions are happening in states like Texas, but we know they're happening because we have seen on TV, national TV, abortionists, midwives in their basements in New York City bragging about how they are illegally violating our federal Comstock Act, sending chemical abortion pills to girls in non-abortion states, where I live in here, for example, the state of Idaho. So this is still happening. And like I said, we don't have great abortion reporting data, because Planned Parenthood has never allowed a national abortion reporting law because they don't want to track anything. But we know abortions are still happening, and it's a major crisis. And the pro-life movement is largely in the dark about chemical abortion pills. I still get questions every time I bring this up. Are you talking about the morning after pill? No, I'm not talking about the morning after pill. There's the birth control pill that's supposed to stop the ovary from releasing the egg, so conception can't occur. We know it's not 100% effective, has about 9% annual failure rate. We all know someone who's gotten pregnant using the birth control pill because breakthrough ovulation does occur. That's the birth control pill. Many of us believe the birth control pill could be abortifacient because breakthrough ovulation occurs, but there's never been any study, and there's no way to ethically test how many babies might be aborted because of that, because of the third action of birth control pills, which is a shedding of the lining of the uterus. So if conception does occur, the child can't implant into the uterine wall. Morning after pill is the birth control pill times 11. So all it does is, if the egg has been released, it sheds the lining of the uterus. And you know this from a woman who's taken the morning after pill. She has intense bleeding, so the child cannot implant in the womb. They don't call this an abortion because in 1965, ACOG, the American College of OBGYNs, changed the definition of pregnancy from conception, when a new human being is formed, to implantation, to when that human being implants into the uterine lining. Plan B can be abortifacient. Once again, we don't know how often, but those are largely considered contraceptive methods. RU486, the abortion pill, is not the same. RU486 is taken with the intention of ending human life. Now remember, birth control and Plan B is taken with the intention of stopping human life from being created. Could end a human life, but the intention is different. RU486 is taken with the intention of, you're pregnant, you want to end the life of your child and expel that child. The first pill in the cocktail is what I talked about, which is in our water, remains active after it passes through her body. It ends the progesterone, stops the progesterone from feeding the child, so the child starves and dies. The second pill induces mifepristol, has been used for years when natural, and I hate using the word, natural miscarriages occur, where the child is still inside of the mother. If she doesn't want to have a D&C procedure to remove the deceased child, she can take this pill. It induces a severe cramping, and it expels the dead child. They use it for chemical abortion too, after they killed a child. That's why it's a 2-pill cocktail. These drugs are very dangerous. There's numerous studies about it. It's either 1 in 15 or 1 in 20 women who will take these pills will end up in the ER for emergency care. Because of the Biden administration, she doesn't even need to go to a doctor anymore. She can just do a telemed appointment, or I can order them on my phone in a few minutes. Say you're pregnant. You don't have to confirm how far along you are in pregnancy. And that's very dangerous. The FDA has only approved these pills to about 11 weeks. I've met women who've had these abortions at 14, 15 weeks, which is extremely dangerous. And if you're not being seen by a physician, most women, including myself, my 4 pregnancies, I always guessed wrong. I never knew how far along I really was. It doesn't, now with the FDA rules, she doesn't even have to have an ultrasound to ensure she's not experiencing a life-threatening ectopic pregnancy. That's where the child implants in the fallopian tube, not the placental tissue. And if that is not caught, that fallopian tube can burst and the child is going to die, but she may also die in the process. It's extremely, extremely dangerous. And that is why when the Clinton administration in 2000 approved RU486 from a French company, they said that a woman had to be seen. She had to have an ultrasound. She had to make sure she had a blood test that she's not Rh negative, because if she's Rh negative, her partner is Rh positive, her blood can be Rh negative, the baby's blood can be Rh positive, and if there's a commingling of blood during an abortion, miscarriage, birth, and that's not caught, she's not given immunoglobulin during the pregnancy, antibodies will form in her body that will attack all future pregnancies, so she may never be able to complete another pregnancy again. She'll be able to get pregnant but not complete, effectively rendering her infertile. All of this was known, and that's why there were very strict stipulations put on chemical abortion pills. That was all gone. The Biden administration, December 1st, 2021 was the hearing of the Dobbs case. I was there. We camped out all night. It was freezing cold. We were there for the hearing. Anyone who listened to the hearing or read the transcripts of the hearing, you pretty much knew that Roe was going to be reversed. The abortion lobby had no real defense. Before Christmas that year, December 2021, the Biden administration got rid of all the REMS. They did it in the name of access. This was their safety net. If Roe is reversed, we will still be able to use the blue states to feed abortions to women in the red states, the states that move to save and protect human life. And that is the situation we find ourselves in today.
Wow. The last thing you said is extremely troubling, that they deregulated this dangerous drug because they knew Roe versus Wade was going to be overturned, and they wanted to get it to the blue states so that people in the red states could go to the blue states and still get their abortions. Who cares about the safety of the mother? I thought that's what this was all about, was coat hanger abortions in back alleys. Turns out that's not true, right?
No, the new back alley today is in a woman's bathroom. And that's the thing that, when I ask pro-life audiences, they've never thought about. I ask people all the time, where do you think a baby goes in a chemical abortion? Because in an abortion facility, she's put to sleep, or if she doesn't have enough money, she has twilight anesthetic, they remove the baby, they make sure at the POC lab there's no parts of the baby, and then they incinerate the baby. Some states burn the babies for fuel. In a chemical abortion, which is now the leading cause of abortion, she is told to go to her toilet or to go to her bathtub when the pressure gets too great, and not to look, and to keep flushing the water down. That means her child, her placental tissue, is being put into our water. That's why when I talk about chemical abortion pills polluting our water, and pro-lifers look at me like I have three heads, chemical abortion, mifepristone, remains active even after it passes through her body. So when the baby, the placental tissue, the pregnancy tissue goes into the bathtub or into the toilet and is flushed, it goes into our wastewater system. And even after it goes through the wastewater treatment plant, it's still present in the water. The wastewater treatment plants aren't getting this progesterone blocker out of the water. And that's what's so,
Kristan,
the stories online of these women who see their babies in the bathtub is horrific because they had no idea.
Yeah. How traumatizing is that for the woman?
It's extremely traumatizing. You can go to TikTok, which I know most people, I don't like TikTok, but if you go to TikTok, there's all these videos, pro-abortion videos, right? How to support your friend or how to have abortion. Women who are pro-choice will go into the comment section and just talk about how horrific their chemical abortion experience are. These women don't regret their abortions, but will say, I'm just warning you, don't have this abortion. I saw it come out of me. I'll never be the same. And it's fascinating that the abortion industry knows this, that these women, even if they're still pro-choice or say that they're pro-choice, they're coming out and talking about the trauma of seeing their baby, because they're told just to expect, placental tissue, pregnancy tissue. They're not told to expect a fully formed baby, a human being, to come out of her, because they continue to use dehumanizing language like it's a clump of cells. So she is literally not prepared for this at all.
Well, there's so much more that I want to talk about, Kristan. We're getting down to the end, though, here. And I just want to mention this idea of human beings, murdered human beings, being flushed into our water supply. That's what we're saying. That's what's happening all over America. Probably, what's your best guess? 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 times a day across this country?
How many? Probably about 2,000 times a day. I don't have the number in front of me. We actually had a wastewater specialist contact us and figure out how many tons of fetal remains are in our water, and it's way more than you want to know about.
Well, yeah. So this is a very real issue.
That's right.
And real quickly, in the time we have left, the agenda on the Trump administration is obviously not aggressive pro-life, but do you expect to make some gains on the abortion pill, perhaps, and also on defunding Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, we're trying to get a meeting with RFK Jr. right now. He's not pro-life, but he's not hostile to the pro-life movement. So there's been some debate within the pro-life community about, him taking leadership of HHS, my former employer. But I think he'll be very interested to learn about the water. I know I've had some friends personally reach out to him, have a conversation, to start the conversation, because if you want to make America healthy again, you got to start taking out fetal remains, progesterone blockers out of our drinking water. I mean, that's a concern that pro-life and pro-choice should be concerned about. And to be honest with you, Richard, as we were saying before we started, when I'm talking to pro-choice young people on campuses who do not believe there's a God, who do not believe there is a reason for living, who do not believe they themselves are even special, it's really hard to convince them that a child they don't know, they don't have a relation to, they can't see is special or has value and shouldn't be killed for someone else's convenience. However, and that's a tragic statement, I realize that for those listening. However, if I start talking about our drinking water and how chemical abortion is hurting all of us, they take the earpods out of their ears, they start to listen, and we have our biggest minds changed rate yet.
That's amazing. Well, let's talk about funding of Planned Parenthood, both at the federal and at the state level. There's a case coming before the U.S. Supreme Court right now out of South Carolina, which defunded Planned Parenthood out of Medicaid. Do you expect that action by South Carolina to be affirmed by the Supreme Court? And then real quickly, what are the chances of defunding Planned Parenthood in this united Republican Congress?
Who knows what the Supreme Court will do. If they follow the law, they'll let the South Carolina rule stand, because the state has a right to say, we don't want taxpayer dollars going towards this. I mean, how can the Supreme Court be forcing a state to fund an abortionist? And the case is solid. Our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom are doing a lot on that. I think we have unity in the pro-life movement that defunding and debarring Planned Parenthood. Debarring is finding them guilty of crimes we already know that they've committed, like double billing the Texas state Medicaid program, selling human remains for profits, or patents, things that we already know. Debarring would say not only do they not get funding this year, but they can't even apply for funding. And it's a common tool used with government contractors, which is what Planned Parenthood is.
Right.
The movement's united. We're going to need your help. You need to call your House of Representative member and demand that they do this. I don't care if they're in a purple district. This just makes sense. And when you explain it to young people, the most liberal part of our voting bloc, that we don't need Planned Parenthood. We have 8,000 federally qualified health centers that are already taxpayer funded, that do everything Planned Parenthood does and more, minus abortion, plus 3,000 pregnancy centers, maternity homes that are privately operated by the pro-life movement. We don't need Planned Parenthood. If they were defunded, every HQ at sea would only need to see 2 more patients a week to absorb the low number of patients Planned Parenthood is seeing. They can go fund themselves. They don't need us, but we need everyone's help. Every Christian in America needs to be demanding debarment and defunding of Planned Parenthood.
Kristan, one of the things people can do today is they can sign up for your emails and stuff like that, right? At studentforlife.org and stay informed. Like, you can find out when it's time to call your congressman, when it's time to call your state representative. So go to studentsforlife.org today and sign up for the newsletter, and you're going to be better informed.
I'll be hand delivering hundreds of thousands of petitions that pro-lifers across America have signed to the Congress on Thursday. I have no idea how I'm going to carry them all, but that matters.
Okay, well, let's get some people there to help you. All right, guys, that's almost all the time we have left now on Truth and Liberty, but I did want to remind you guys about our free product giveaway today. It's the booklet, What is a Biblical Worldview? We have an entire series here that Andrew Womack has put together along with Alex McFarland and many other great scholars on biblical worldview. It's a 4-part series with 12 lessons in each volume with study guides for small groups and everything else. But right now we just got this little booklet that anybody can read. It's about 50 pages. What is a biblical worldview? It is essential that we reestablish a biblical worldview in our nation and in our culture. You wonder why Christians having trouble persuading kids on college campuses that it's basically wrong to murder unborn children? Well, it's because they do not have a biblical worldview. They don't understand human life or where it comes from. So go to our website at gtntv.com to the Truth and Liberty page, and you can get your free copy of What is a Biblical Worldview today. So thank you for doing that. And again, Kristan, thanks so much for coming on the show. It is always a treat when we have you on, and we love you guys and what you do.
Keep praying for us, Richard. Thank you so much for our support. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. God bless you.
God bless.